Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Kalanati. Today I'm going to do the first of 3 videos on my favorite reads of 2018. This one will be my favorite books of 2018, the usual list I do every year, and then I will do one on honorable mentions, works that didn't quite make the cut for this list, and then I will do a third video on my favorite rereads of 2018. So without further ado, here are my favorite books of 2018 that I read for the first time during the year. I kept it to 10 spots, but I cheated a little bit, included 2 books in a couple of spots because they were essentially ties. And as usual, this list is not ranked in any particular way. I'm really bad at ranking things and I hate choosing between my favorites. However, saying that, if you were to ask me what my favorite read of the entire year is, I would be able to very easily tell you it was the Lady Astronaut duology by Mary Robinette Kowal. They are The Calculating Stars and the sequel The Faded Sky, and both of these books came out in 2018. And just let me tell you, if you start reading The Calculating Stars, make sure you have the sequel on hand already because you're going to want to jump into it straight after finishing The Calculating Stars. I had to wait, there was this gap in the middle, and it made me very sad. So I have already done separate reviews of both of these books, so I will link them for you if you want to hear the full summary and my thoughts on them. But basically this is historical science fiction that asks the question, could we have gotten to the moon and Mars with the technology that we had in the 1950s and 60s if we had the motivation to do so? There's also a lot in there about the experience of women in the space program and the main character Elma York wanting to become the first lady astronaut, and many issues of race at the time as well. And if you also want a story that portrays very realistically a character's experiences with anxiety and trying to be, a high-performing and successful person with anxiety, this is also a great read. The first Murderbot novella, All Systems Red by Martha Wells, came out in 2017, and I love that novella. I reread it in 2018, and one of the best things about the whole year was that another 3 Murderbot novellas came out in 2018. I've read all of them, and the next spot is a tie between the second one, Artificial Condition, and the fourth one, Exit Strategy. Now, I liked the third one too, which is called Rogue Protocol, but these are the 2 that got a solid 5 stars out of me. I love everything about the Murderbot series. I want more very badly. So if you've never heard of Murderbot, number 1, where have you been? Have you been living under a rock? Please come out. I have wonderful things to show you. But 2, Murderbot is what a kind of rogue security unit robot calls itself. Murderbot hacks its governor module so it has gained autonomy, but it's trying to not let anybody find that out. It just wants to do its job and watch a lot of media and entertainment. Murderbot is not sociable, it doesn't like being around people, it gets very anxious about these things, and it just wants to live its life and be left alone. Only that just doesn't happen. I feel like Artificial Condition is just a great continuation on from All Systems Red. If you like the first novella, you'll probably really enjoy the second one. And Exit Strategy kind of comes full circle, brings us back to a lot of the characters from the first novella, and I think provides a pretty satisfactory ending for the story arc amongst the 4 novellas. There is going to be a novel probably in 2020, I think, and I'm sure there are many more adventures for Murderbot, so I'm looking forward to that as well. And like I said, I'm going to reread these novellas a lot just because they're short and sweet and they make me feel good inside. The next spot on this list is held by another duology. Surprise, surprise. This is the Clocktower War duology by T. Kingfisher, the pen name of Ursula Vernon, and the books are Clockwork Boys and The Wonder Engine. Despite the titles and the cover art, these are not steampunk. They are pure fantasy set in a secondary world and kinda inspired by like board games, D&D, that kind of thing. And I loved them. These were some of the funniest, most enjoyable books I read all year long. They're not perfect, but they made me laugh, and they were just fun. The story here is that a group of criminals on their last chance are assembled and forced to go to a neighboring city-state on a suicide mission to discover the source of the really terrible mechanical clockwork centaur things that are wreaking havoc across the land. And yeah, it's hilarious. The characters are a ninja assassin, a mopey paladin who wants to be reunited with his god, in like a talking to his god sense, not like in he wants to die, an assassin who's really good at his job, and a monk scholar who has serious women issues at the beginning. Yeah. Did I mention it's hilarious? This is the duology where I started to see a lot of comparisons between Ursula Vernon's writing style and Terri Pratchett's, and I completely agree with that. Just some of her phrasing, the concept she deals with, the commentary on social stuff, and the jokes do remind me of Terri Pratchett in some ways, and I love it. Gods, Monsters, and the Lucky Peach by Kelly Robson. This was one of the earliest books I read in 2018 that I just knew was going to be one of my favorites, and it is still one of my favorites. This is essentially a time travel story, but it mashes up different genres and ideas and concepts that I feel like only Kelly Robson could really pull off seamlessly. It was wonderful. Now, I particularly liked the beginning of the novella, which features a lot of like project management and proposal writing because I'm that kind of nerd. But I thought the rest of it, including the time travel aspect, was really great. It just sucked me in, and I thought it was such a well-told story. I've actually done a full review on this, which will be a much better video to watch if you want to know more about it, because I made it while it was still fresh in my mind. I also feel like that review is possibly one of the best videos I made in the entire year, so go watch that. Next is Semiosis by Sue Burke, which is a book I find difficult to talk about because I knew while I was reading the book that I adored it and it was going to be one of my favorites of the year, but I consumed it so quickly that much of it hasn't stuck in my brain, so I've forgotten so much about this book. I just remember how great the experience of reading it was. So Semiosis is, to the best of my recollection, about a group of colonists who lands on an alien planet, not the planet they were actually aiming for, and they have to survive over multiple generations in an environment with an ecology and plant life that is not exactly out to get them, but is certainly not super compatible with human biological nature, and it's very possible that the plant life is sentient or aware of them. And the story is told generation by generation, so it actually tells like hundreds of years of history, and I thought at first that I wouldn't like the time jumping bits, but actually I thought it would turn out to be a really good way of seeing like the sped up history and the effects and the growth of the settlement and the setbacks and progress that they had as they worked more and more with their environment and the life already on the planet. It was just really great. It had aspects of biology and linguistics and alien communication that I just really enjoy in general, and it was really well written. So, loved it, will reread it, and need to get to the sequel sometime in 2019. Next is 4 Ways to Forgiveness by Ursula K. Le Guin. I believe that this also exists in a different version called 5 Ways to Forgiveness, but I read this one, which won a National Book Award. I've already done a full video on this and talking about the individual stories and novellas in it and, you know, all that good stuff, so watch that if you want a deeper dive. But overall, this is a collection of interlocking stories about 2 planets that have been defined for a very long time by systematic slavery, and it's about what slavery does to a society, not just to the people who are enslaved, but also to the people who are owners and masters, and how difficult it is to not just free your body, but to free your mind, and how to get out of the slavery mindset. It is brutal and unflinching and very difficult to read in places, especially with the aspects of how women are treated, women being constantly second-class citizens, whether they're free or enslaved. But I feel like Guin really lets her subject matter speak for itself. She doesn't try to over-explain it, she doesn't try to overwrite it, she's not being sadistic to her characters or to the reader. She's letting it speak for itself and letting the truths just sort of hang there. It was a gorgeous read, a really difficult read, and I just feel like it messed up my brain a little bit for a while after I read it. It was wonderful. Next up is The Cereal Garden, The Complete Armitage Family Stories by Joan Aiken. This is an odd book on my favorites list this year because unlike all the other things, it's a collection of children's stories about children for children, but wonderful to read no matter what age you are. So the Armitage family stories were stories that Joan Aiken wrote from the 1950s through the 1990s, and they are just really delightful, fun adventure stories about a family that constantly has things happen to them. And it mainly focuses on the two children, Harriet and Mark. It's a blend of really gentle fantasy and magical elements with a contemporary world, which is actually very old-fashioned. And I feel like part of the reason I really loved this is that it was old-fashioned. And there's this feeling of freedom and fun in childhood throughout this, and all the stories, no matter when they were written, are so consistent in length, in tone, in subject matter, and the way that they make you feel. I thought this was just so admirable because of how consistently good all of the stories in this collection are. So, The Cereal Garden by Joan Aiken. This is one I would recommend if you like short story collections and you want something like a palate cleanser just to make you feel good inside. Check this one out. Switching gears entirely, the next book is Pushing Ice by Alastair Reynolds. This is a hard science fiction novel, and it is about the crew of a spaceship that is ordered to pursue a moon-sized alien object as it is leaving the solar system. Unfortunately, they get sucked along with it, and they will never survive the return journey to Earth. So they are hitching a ride on alien machinery. They don't know where they're going. They just have to survive. So I thought this was a very well done, hard science fiction novel. I thought that the science and technology and alien contact and the nitty-gritty of surviving and where would these people get their energy and everything, that was really well done. I found it fascinating and very engrossing. However, what elevated it to my favorites list is that I felt like this was the first book by Reynolds that I'd read that nailed the characters, and particularly female characters that I really liked, because the two protagonists are both women, and their very antagonistic friends to enemies relationship and their attempts at reconciliation over the years really shapes and defines their attempt at survival, like this human colony. And so they're on opposite sides of political schisms and factions and everything, and so that weaves in with the story of survival and alien contact. It was just so well done, and it was really great to see women in these situations as a captain of a ship, as an excellent mechanic and engineer and everything, and never reduced to like stereotypes of women. So yeah, the science is good, the characters are good, combine them and you get a really great novel. Next up is The Moon and the Other by John Kessel, which is probably one of the most surprising books I read in 2018, because I went into this knowing nothing about it at all. I had zero expectations, and then it turned into something that I really loved, and I loved the way that it was done as well. This one I had the presence of mind to film an entire video on, so I would recommend you go watch that, especially if you want to know more about kind of where I think this fits in with kind of this subgenre of feminist SF and science fiction stories that imagine societies that are only women or female dominated, and just how this uses that almost like trope of feminist SF in a way that I thought was new and different and kind of approached things at a different angle. I thought it was a good story. I appreciated all of the relationships and the interlocking aspects of it, and how it was not a rushed story. It takes place at its own pace, not too fast, not too slow. I just remember it being a very consistent read, you know, that surprised me so much, and how it dealt with the ideas that it raised. I will definitely be reading more by John Kessel in the future. And last, but by no means least on this list, is The Wood Wife by Terri Windling. This is a gorgeous mythic fiction novel. It is kind of contemporary mythic fiction, blending mythology, like almost Native American mythology, with the modern world in the American Southwest. It's a story where the landscape, the setting of the desert is so important to the story and to the atmosphere that develops in it as well. I thought this was a brilliant story, a very well told story with the perfect shape and form to it, but it also just had this amazing feeling to it because of the landscape that is so integral to the story. So this is about a woman who is a writer. She inherits the estate of a longtime friend, a poet. She moves to the Southwest to live in his house, go through his papers because she wants to write a biography of him, and she begins to fall in love with the desert, which she had not expected to like living there. And she learns more about what's going on, the almost like supernatural, mythical forces in play, and how her friend, the poet, may have actually died. Everything about this I loved. I wish that Terri Windling had more novels out there. I believe that she may be working on some sort of sequel. No idea when that may come out, if ever, but I will definitely be looking out for more of her books and anthologies and anything with her name on it. And those are my favorite books of 2018. Let me know if you have read any of these, or if you want to, what your thoughts are on them. Let me know if any of these were also your favorites of the year. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back very soon with my honorable mentions and my favorite rereads of the year. And until then, bye.